And now to a scary new report that shows that most Americans don't have enough flood insurance for climate change. The report from First Street Foundation is making the first public attempt to apply property level risk data to individual home values. And the results highlight just how broken the U.S. flood insurance program is. This comes at a time of heightened attention on U.S. energy and infrastructure after Texas's grid failure last week. And it's something our next guest spoke about with Biden's climate czar, Gina McCarthy. Here to discuss her interview and more is Bloomberg senior climate change reporter, Leslie Kaufman. Hey, Leslie, thanks so much for joining us. I want to start with flooding here. Give us some numbers. How much does flood damage actually cost on an annual basis?
Hi, Tim. It's great to be with you. So flood damage is huge, billions and billions of dollars. The new report looks specifically at flood damage that homeowners are at risk. And what's interesting about it is it can tell us home by home what your risk for flood damage is, and that's new information. And they say that U.S. homeowners are at risk of $18.8 billion in flood damage annually.
Wow, that is a lot of money. What is the relationship that the federal government has when it comes to flood insurance? Like, what is their role when it comes to flood insurance? Because I think it's something that a lot of consumers, even homeowners, don't understand.
Yeah, it's a little bit confusing. So basically, the federal government started in the flood insurance business in 1968. And it started because a lot of the private insurers had begun to realize that it wasn't a very cost-effective market to be in. And that has only gotten worse with climate change. So currently, the U.S. government owns 95% of flood insurance policies, residential flood insurance policies in the United States. And that is a money-losing game, certainly at the premiums they're charging. The current U.S. flood insurance program is $20 billion in debt.
Wow. Okay, and it's going to get worse. Annual flood damages are expected to increase, as you write, in 2050 to $30 billion. That's annual flood damage. Apart from building in different places, can anything be done to try to prevent this from happening?
Well, so there are two parts of that. What was interesting about this story is it found that in the short term, all sorts of adaptations did make a difference. If you put your house on stilts, for example, if you raised your first floor, your risk of flood damage actually did go down. But it also found that in the long term, there were areas like Miami Beach and certainly Louisiana in particular, where those homes essentially, the insurance on those homes will just make them unaffordable. You cannot essentially raise them enough to make them safe.
Wow. Okay, so I guess the question that I have after reading this is, are there areas of the country that people will start to migrate to more so? Because it's surprising to me that we're seeing so much news about people moving to Miami and development happening in Miami when it is an area of the country that does face so much risk. But it doesn't seem like this is something that people are really thinking about when they're thinking about where to live.
There's been a huge disconnect in America on this subject, and really all over the world. Coastal properties are delightful. Who doesn't want the ocean out their window? And so what the market needs to do and hasn't done an effective job is putting the price of that risk into that home. And that's why this report is so important, because it shows the incredible gap between the insurance for that home and the actual risk for that home. And the people on the hook for the difference are the American taxpayers.
So what's the federal government doing about this and about climate change in general right now with the change in administrations? You recently spoke to Biden's climate czar, Gina McCarthy. What did she tell you about her plan?
Well, they've come in very aggressively, and Gina, her whole point, she's a former EPA administrator, is that the current Biden administration she wants every agency on board, everyone looking at their policies and practices and trying to figure out how to drive down their carbon budgets and how they can better plan for climate change as it's coming.
All right, well, there you have it. Bloomberg News senior climate change reporter Leslie Kaufman. Hey, Leslie, thanks so much for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
The biggest stories the moment they happen from around the globe. Subscribe to Bloomberg Quick Take now for insight in an instant.